Welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. I'm your host, Zach Scriven. We go live every week here Tuesday at noon Central. So make sure to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on bell notifications so you guys get notified every time we go live. We've got a great, interesting show planned for you today. Let me know where you guys are joining from in the comments. And we'll let everyone kind of get into the stream today. And then before we get started, so we're going to be talking about, we're actually going to be talking about Tesla a little bit today, kind of going into some of their metrics and some of their numbers. This should appeal to the finance folks, the CEOs, the CFOs that are probably shitting their pants right now because it's not software that's eating the world. It's Tesla that's eating the world, right? We have an Industry 4.0 maturity score. Tesla ranks number 1, right? This is the fourth industrial revolution happening before our eyes, and now it's finally being visible. We got a poll in the chat on the YouTube. Hey, David, Josh, what's up, 4.0 gang? I'm here in Salt Lake City, so it's kind of like raining outside. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's kind of nice, actually. It's not too cold. Maybe we'll get some snow here in a couple months. Hey, Mario, welcome from Brazil. So enter the chat. Are you guys a Tesla investor? We've been talking about Tesla for 3+ years on our channel now. Don't make the same mistake I did, where we just talked about it but didn't actually take action, right? Walker's not going to be on the stream today. He has a message for you guys. I'll share what that message is in a second. But today we're going to be talking about OEE is lit. It's not shit. It's OEE is lit. And we're also going to be talking about some of the problems with OEE, right? OEE is not perfect, right? And it's not the only metric. And then, like I said, we're also going to be talking about Tesla. Hey, Marquez family, thank you for joining from South Carolina, Seneca. Awesome. Manufacturing hub right there. Matthew Kendall, welcome from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, Benjamin from Pakistan. Kios from Minneapolis. Hey, Alan. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Make sure to hit the like button, get subscribed, turn on bell notifications because we do this every week. So let everyone take a breath in. Still early in Tesla's bull run. Still early. It's not too late to get in. All righty. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Hey, Johan. Hey, Annabelle. Hey, Devin. It's cheap. You're going to look back and think that it's cheap. It's a technology growth company. They're growing at 50+ CAGR, cumulative annualized growth rate. Josh, he sat in the car today. Josh, what is your opinion of the Tesla, right? I think Walker described it as like a spaceship. So expensive. It is, right? I mean, I think split adjusted, it's at like 6,000 a share now, right? I could see it going to split adjusted 100,000 a share. We might even be doing a split next year, right? I thought you were going to talk about those red shoes. Hey, those red shoes do look pretty hot, right? Those red shoes do look pretty hot in the in the screenshot there. Yeah. Thank you. Real quick, thank you HiveMQ for sponsoring our channel. HiveMQ is an enterprise class MQTT broker. Funny enough, they actually have a huge application. A lot of automotive customers are using MQTT to transmit their data back to their infrastructure. So huge shout out to HiveMQ. Check the link in the description to learn more about HiveMQ and consider using HiveMQ in your infrastructure. We're going to be doing several videos, whiteboard style videos, kind of like the one we did last week with the UNS and historian architecture. We're going to be doing more architecture videos. You guys really seem to like that one, so we're going to be doing more vibe board videos. The Puma shoes stepped up their game when it comes to shoes. Josh said, why, you sit in the car and just ask, why would anyone buy a different car? All right, let's go ahead and blow this up. Okay, let's see if I can adjust this a little bit. If I make it a little bit more narrow, it should. Okay, that should work. Okay. All right, so real quick, this is going to be important for later. A little quick side note, a lesson on what is a straw man, because there seems to be a lot of this like being proliferated on LinkedIn, people straw manning OEE. Essentially what a straw man argument is you misrepresent someone's argument to make it easier to attack, right? So we'll get into this later, but just remember this for later in the stream. And let's get into Tesla. All right, so I think it's really important to like look at this chart and understand that the Model 3 was released in like 2018. So prior to 2018, actually, let me see if I can pull this up here. So prior to 2018, it was all Model S, Model X, right? So for those of you guys that don't know, Tesla started out like with this triangle approach, right? So low number of vehicles, right? So Tesla's mission is to save the planet, save and create renewable energy. And so they're kind of like an energy and transportation company, right? They want to accelerate the world's adoption of electric vehicles. So prior to 2018 and before, this was all Model S, Model S, Model X. And even before that, you had the Roadster. That was actually their first car. Fun fact, I actually, when I was in high school, I graduated class of 2010, we had like clean EV vehicle week or whatever. There was literally a Roadster sitting in our campus parking, like the center of our campus. We could go check it out. It looked like a model. It looked like a Lotus, right? A Lotus Elise. It's a good looking car, but one of the problems was their initial design philosophy when designing the Roadster was, hey, let's take a Roadster. Let's see if we can you guys see that? Here. Let's see if I can move this to the other side. There we go. So their initial design philosophy, like let's do a very expensive car in low volume, then a less expensive car and super expensive car, the Roadster, and low volumes, right? Then the Model S, still a really expensive car, destroy that category, low volumes, right? So this was all Model S, Model X, but the Roadster was actually like even 2010, it wouldn't even show up because there was just such low volumes. They're almost making them by hand. But the original design philosophy was like, let's take a Lotus and then we'll just convert it into an EV, right? But the problem was less than 7% of the parts were the same, right? The battery pack made the vehicle much more heavy, so they had to do structural frame improvements. None of the body panels were the same. Even like things as simple as like the air conditioner was a belt-driven air conditioner. They had to replace it for like an electric motor air conditioner, right? So it was a modified and stretched Lotus Elise, right? But less than 7% of it was unique, right? So they learned, they made mistakes and they recovered quickly. When they outsourced motor, right? They had like a supplier like of electric motors, and they realized real quickly that wasn't going to work. So what did they do for the Model S? They started building everything themselves. They basically went back to the drawing board and built it from scratch. This is what Walker was saying. They originally copied how Legacy Automotive went to market, right? By outsourcing the supply chain and having thousands of parts, and they're like, hey, that's not conducive to building electric vehicles at scale. So they learned Model S. They basically went back to the drawing board, built it up from scratch, built their own electric drivetrain, etc. But it was low volume, expensive car, low volume, and Model S was over $100,000, right? I think it's like 110 now. And same thing with like the Model X. I think it's 105K, something like that. So in 2018, we had the Model 3. So this was the iPhone moment for well, you could call this also, we've had a lot of iPhone moments in the last couple of years with Tesla, but really 2021 is kind of a pivoting point, really where everything kind of just goes exponential. Tesla to Mars, okay? So Model 3 come out here, and then here's when the first Ys started shipping, like in this quarter right here, 2020, Model Y. Model Y's already almost surpassed the Model 3 in terms of units produced, and it came out like 2 years later. So just think about that for a second. By 2023, the Model Y will be the best-selling vehicle of any kind, right? Electric, gas, you name it, and possibly by 2022, okay? There was a really sick chart that I was trying to find before I was preparing this presentation that showed cumulative number of EVs sold since, not since like over time, like by year, but since it was introduced, right? So like it was something like this, right? Where, Model 3 was kind of like this. All the other electric vehicles are like this, essentially. Like even the Model S is like that. But then the Y is literally like this. It's already almost, so if this is like 10 months, and 3, it's been out like 30 months. The Model Y is literally almost outsold the Model 3 in like less than a third of the time. Josh says crossover SUVs are the most popular. So yeah. And you know what's different that Tesla's doing versus other auto manufacturers is that they're literally just creating one category killer per category, right? Look at how many SUV crossovers does Ford make, They're not going to be making any in the future. They're just going to be niching down on trucks, like with their electric Lightning and stuff like that. So this was, I tried to find that chart. I couldn't find it. If I do find it, I'll share it in the Discord later. But let's get back to the story of Tesla, the growth story. How are they doing this? Well, fourth industrial revolution. We talk about this all the time, right? What they learned when selling the Model S and X, back here, they applied that to the Model 3. They were able to ramp Model 3. What they learned selling the Model 3 and building out the Model 3 factory, they literally took that and they put it into the Shanghai factory. Some Tesla bears will like to say, hey, EV sales are down in China. They'll like try to like cross analyze like one small piece of data and take it out of context. So like, oh, EV shipments are down in China. Well, want to know why? Because the Tesla cars, the Tesla vehicles that come out of the Shanghai factory that was built like, in 2020 are much more profitable than the ones that come out of Fremont. And that's why they're retooling Fremont. That's why the Tesla models that come out of the new Gigafactory in Texas and the new Gigafactory in Berlin will be even better, right? But they're literally taking inventory from Shanghai and mostly shipping it to Europe. So if the number of units that are actually sold in China are down, that's why, right? Don't listen to the bears. So yeah, this is just going to continue. They're at 1 million per year right now. That's like the rate. This year they'll basically, they'll hit like, 900,000. Last quarter was like 240,000 deliveries in one quarter. So, you do the math times 4, that's at 1 million vehicle per year rate. With a 50% cumulative annualized growth rate, they're going to be hitting 2 million, by 2023 for sure. So let's move on to the next slide here. I think it's also important to take a look at this next slide, which is, this is sort of that same chart that I was talking about, but this is normalized based on year, and you can really see, here's where the model, if you started them at the same point, right? Here's where the Model 3 started selling. Here's where the Model Y. Look at that ramp. Okay. Any questions? So you'll notice Model 3 sales started to decline a little bit right here. That's because, obviously Model Y, some people were starting to order the Y instead, but it's still actually going back up because now can't even get the Model Y, right? You can't even get the Model 3. Walker had to order the Model 3 performance in order for it to come in a reasonable amount of time. So, yeah. So let's move on to the next one. This is why I'm a Tesla investor. This is why Industry 4.0 plays into their manufacturing process, because they're using data and information to not only make their cars better, but to make their manufacturing process better, right? Look at this ramp, right? They ramped here, but they sort of like plateaued here, right? Then they actually went down, but then they had a ramp, right? This is a much more smoother ramp, right? Think about if they actually released the Model 2, or it's not actually called the Model 2, but if they released the 25K model, which may not even have a steering wheel. It might be like 2023, but it's literally gonna look like this, So they're not gonna even release that car. There's no need for them to release it because they can't. They're scaling their manufacturing operations so fast right now that even if they had a new model, it wouldn't increase the number of vehicles that they could sell because they're at capacity, right? Tesla could literally sell every electric vehicle they make for years and years to come because the demand is that high. Someone's like, Gordon, there's like a analyst, Gordon, he's a big Tesla bear. He's like, Tesla selling 100,000 vehicles to Hertz is a sign of weakness because typically they're sold at a discount. Well, newsflash, they sold them at retail price. And Elon just tweeted saying, the contract's not even signed yet. So he's basically saying this Hertz deal doesn't even matter to us. Now it's going to be a great because having 100,000, and they might even order 200,000 Tesla Model 3s. That's like outsourcing their marketing. In fact, Hertz is running paid ads on Facebook and social channels using like Tom Brady. So like literally and marketing the Tesla Model 3 that they have the Tesla Model 3. So Tesla's like literally getting all that benefit and Hertz is paying for it, and they're paying full retail cost for the cars. Let's move on. So this is actually really important. This will make the fundamentalists sort of happy. So obviously this was when they were scaling. This is when they were building out the Model 3 factory and the Gigafactory in Nevada. Here's where they were ramping Model Y, Shanghai, something like that. So they're building out the factory. Now look at that profit. This is profit. This is net income. So they're basically investing. I think they lost like $3 billion. And here they basically broke even. And now they're like in the green, like several billion, right? That's last quarter, almost 500 million net income. That's not coming from tax credits, right? That's not coming from Bitcoin sales. I think the Bitcoin sale was, I think that there was like, this might've been Bitcoin sale, right? They made like 100 million in Bitcoin sale. And then you've got like 200 million in tax credits, which by the way, I mean, that's legit. If other auto manufacturers are buying them, then that's their problem, not Tesla's, So this is all car profit, right? This is all car profit. So if someone says, hey, they're only making money because the credits, well, one, that's just fucking not true. And two, so what? So what? Tesla's going to start making money from insurance. They're possibly releasing a Tesla phone that connects to Starlink internet. Tesla Energy, right? There's solar. I don't know if anyone knows, but they actually acquired Solar City way back, I think somewhere around here. But Solar City's sales went down, right? They lost market share. Solar City was the number one electric photovoltaic electric installer in the world, like in 2017. And they went down. The reason why was because like literally all of the staff from the Solar City team was put all hands on deck for Model 3 ramp. Because basically, if Model 3 ramp didn't work, I mean, they would have been in the toilet, right? So it had to work, right? They had no other choice but to make Model 3 work, right? 2018, thanks, Josh, for checking that. Yeah, so 2018, they acquired them. The sales went down the last 2 years. It's starting to ramp back up, right? They've got Model 3 successfully selling. They've got Model Y ramped up even quicker. Now they're opening up new factories, right? Model Y is going to become best-selling vehicle in the world. Model 3 was already the best-selling vehicle in Europe of any kind, ICE included, or home energy, right? Kyo said, how about the home energy market, right? Some people don't realize this, but your home creates a lot of excess heat, right? You have your refrigerator that's dumping off heat, and you have your washer and dryer and all of these other things that create heat. Well, Tesla had this Model 3 heat pump that takes heat from places that are generating them within the car, and then it converts it back into energy for the battery. So the same thing applied to Tesla HVAC or Tesla home energy. It could use a heat pump and recover some of that energy lost to heat. So not only making renewable energy more abundant, using more renewable energy, but also decreasing the energy usage of homes, right? I don't know if they're going to enter that market anytime soon, just because they've got their hands full with scaling. They're going to be ramping Berlin pretty soon. I think the first vehicles will actually be coming out of Berlin end of this year. So 2022 they're going to be ramping Berlin, and then later in 2022 they'll be ramping Gigafactory Austin. So economies of scale. Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about was the rocket equation for manufacturing. We're going to get into OEE in a second, and obviously OEE is not the only metric that matters. But when you look at manufacturing from a first principles approach, like Elon does, right? He removes processes, right? And he removes procedures. He deletes parts from the car, right? The Model 3 rear chassis used to be 70 parts that were welded together with a line of 300 robots. They do 1 gigacasting, and they've deleted 300 robots, and now it's one, or I think it's 3 parts. They might go to single piece rear casting, but I think right now it's 3 pieces of rear casting that they put together. So instead of 70 parts, they have 3, right? Their goal is to essentially get the car down to 100 parts. And each time they do a new factory, it's a new iteration. I think they're going to take Fremont and upgrade that. Right now, Fremont's doing 500,000 vehicles a year, and it's basically packed now. They're going to try to squeeze 1 million vehicles per year out of Fremont. And Berlin and Austin are going to be 1 million to 2 million plus vehicles per year. Cheryl said Tesla wall units are bundled with solar roof. Right. So they used to sell the Tesla Powerwall, this little battery pack. So the Powerwall would essentially, allow you to store energy, and then you could use that to to stabilize the grid, right? You could store solar energy in the day and then use it at night. So you can almost become grid independent. But what's even better is actually going to do VPP, which is a virtual power plant. So imagine if everyone in the neighborhood had Tesla Powerwalls. Collectively, that's a distributed power plant, right? Each one is 7.4 kilowatts. You multiply that by 100, a subdivision of 100, or you've got almost 700 700 kilowatts, almost a megawatt power plant. And then they have grid level storage with the power packs, or the power packs. They're big grid level storage. So, but basically, they're not selling Powerwalls individually anymore. You have to get a solar system because there's just so much demand. They're scaling out their new 4680 batteries, right? And even it's crazy. They're building their own plant to build these, and they're we can't we can't purchase them fast enough. Like Panasonic, if you build out a 4680 plant, which they're doing, he said, we'll buy all the batteries you can, right? They're literally supply constraint right now. Let's move on. All right. OEE. So this is going to wrap up the Tesla portion of our discussion. It's a little warm up. Let's get into OEE. I don't know if you can kind of see this here, but I'll zoom in on this one. Honestly, I don't even really want to read this because it's bullshit. But this guy, Dr. Tony Burns, posted saying, today I asked if Dr. Wheeler says OEE is nonsense, what should I use? And then kind of goes into this long spiel. Basically, come to find out, these guys are actually trolls, right? They don't actually want to engage in a discussion. They just will blast out like, oh, OEE is like height times weight to measure your health or something like that. It's fucking horseshit. Obviously, the taller you are, the more you're going to weigh. So there's like an inverse correlation. I mean, it's just a horrible example, and they're not really open for discussion. I invited them to come on the podcast. I reached out, sent them a connection request, both Dr. Tony Burns and Dr. Wheeler and Ross James, who we'll get here. We'll get to what Walker's comment was. We'll watch James in a second, but we're going to explain why we like OEE, and we're going to also identify its problems. But essentially, here's what Walker said. Walker essentially smacked this guy in the face with a 2x4. So Walker said, Ross James, I am not a uni dropout. So he sort of like looked at my profile and took a stab at my education. But he said, I am a multi-degreed solutions architect with 21 years building solutions that have transformed, saved, and built organizations. That's part of our mission, save and create middle-class jobs by leveraging technology like Tesla uses to help make manufacturers more efficient, to innovate, right? To do more with less. Dr. Wheeler makes some valid points, which I even said, right? One of their biggest points was quality is not binary. We agree, right? There's more granular ways to measure quality, right? This kind of gets into the straw man argument, which I'll get to a second, but as does Burns. But they apply to very narrow vectors. On a macro level, they are flat out wrong. That's what I said in the Discord that seemed to really ruffle some people's feathers. I said, what they're saying is true, but they're straw manning OEE. They're doing a straw man argument of OEE. No one ever said operate your business only with OEE, right? That's a straw man, right? Obviously, there's better ways to measure quality than just good part versus bad part. Their statements and yours are flat out wrong. They miss some very key and simple elements of operational analysis and continuous improvement, and they miss all the value differentiators of OEE and data science, and they misinform the already misinformed community. And here's the part where we're dedicating today's live stream to discuss it in detail. If you don't want me to reference your public posts, please delete them. Well, he didn't delete them, so we'll go ahead and reference them. And then this part, I was like, fuck yeah, Walker's got my back. Taking a pot shot at Zach's education is per ad hominem. You know nothing of his professional compliments. VPs of basket weaving don't have an excuse for taking intellectual shortcuts like that, and neither do you. All right, let's move on here. Yeah, Walker. I was telling my girlfriend about this engagement. I'm like, yeah, Walker just took it, like literally just took a 2x4 and smacked him across the face with it. And she was like, oh my God. I'm like, no, like figuratively, he smacked him in the face with a 2x4. Smells like doctors falling into another logical fallacy, appeal to authority. Yeah, that's one of the things that people say about our content all the time is like, oh, we appeal to the engineer, or, we ruffle the feathers of executives. That's why we don't do PowerPoints, is because PowerPoint tells you nothing other than that you know how to make good PowerPoints, smoke and mirrors, right? There's someone that comes to mind. He uses Prezi, Prezi, like where like zooms around. I mean, it looks cool, but it would lead you to believe that person knows something about MES or SCADA, or but they really don't. I am a doctor, therefore my gospel is absolute. I'd rather have a manufacturing company led by a technology engineer than an MBA. 10 times out of 10, I would take the, look at Elon Musk, right? There's actually a video that Walker did, How Industry is Changing, part 1. There's also a masterclass that goes further into detail on that, the IIoT free masterclass. And he literally says, Industry 3.0 was all about manufacturers being run by accountants and HR. Industry 4.0 is all about technology companies, right? There's a Tesla's over $1 trillion valuation that literally puts Tesla right alongside Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, right? Tesla's going to become the most valuable company in the world within the next couple of years here, right? They only have to hit $2,500 per share to make them, the most valuable company in the world. And they're already at $1,200 a share, right? So they're halfway there. So this is availability, quality, performance. Let's break down what OEE is. We'll break down why we like it. We'll break down why you multiply them together, what to do with those numbers, and then last but not least, we'll address some issues, some potential issues with OEE, some examples of edge cases where OEE might lead you in the wrong direction, what to do in those scenarios, and then we'll open up for questions. Devin said, there's always going to be some confirmation bias. Existing investors want Tesla to grow so they benefit, and those who haven't want to find a reason not at this stage when it's grown considerably. I did a poll. That, it's like 70% of people either said hold, sell, or it's overpriced, sell, I don't, knowing what we know, right? Knowing what this community knows, showing you those numbers that I showed you, right? I mean, all they have to do is drop the $25,000, we'll call it the Corolla killer, right? A Model 3 is already less expensive to maintain than a Toyota Corolla, right? That's why Hertz wants to buy 100,000 of them, right? The OpEx is going to go down, right? Just pure insanity out there. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so we'll do availability. All right, availability takes into account unplanned and planned stops. And availability score of 100% means the process is always running during the planned production time. Let's talk about what some things are for planned production time. Our safety meetings, are those downtime, or is that unplanned downtime, or is that planned downtime? Someone let me know in the comments. Safety meetings or lunch breaks, are those considered planned downtime or unplanned downtime? I'll let you know what it is, but I just want to see what the community has to say. Also, like shifts. Obviously, if you have 3 shifts, here's shift 1, here's shift 2, and then, let's say shift 3, you're not operating shift 3. So each one of these is 8 hours, right? So here, your planned runtime would be, 16 hours, right? So 8 hours, 8 hours, right? Typically, you want to calculate OEE down to the second, but for the purposes here, let's just talk about this. But then what you'll do is you'll subtract out your shift. Yeah. So to answer the question, lunches would be subtracted out, right? So this would be planned downtime. This would be planned downtime. Right. So if you take out your breaks, planned downtime. Also changeover, planned downtime. Yep, planned. You guys are right. All right, good. I hope you guys are, if you've never built an OEE system from scratch, I highly recommend it. You'll learn more about OEE and the potential roadblocks in calculating it, than you know, just by doing that than you would ever by watching any videos. But so OEE, the problem, Walker said there's 3 problems with OEE, right? Number one, machine builders haven't standardized how events are processed, right? The way we process events is we take all events that happen on the edge and we publish them into a unified namespace, right? Report by exception, edge-driven, lightweight. The second problem is status registers. So we got 1, events, 2, status. A lot of times machines aren't even coming with a status register. This is like this is an integer like 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So like 0 would be off, 1 would be ready to run, 2 would be running, 3 would be alarm, 4 would be a different type of alarm, right? If we at least had manufacturers that are machine builders putting in status registers into their machines, then calculating OEE would be a little bit easier, right? And then what you could do is you could take this change, any type of change in this, you could do a tag change script. And then you'd publish that as an event, right? You'd store that as a record in the database to calculate OEE, right? How do you contextualize events? So what I do is I have like, and I didn't really plan on going this detail in it, but you'd essentially have a database, and you'd call it like machine state or machine status. And then you'd have 1 row for every change, right? You'd have state, the state that it became, right? You don't really need the previous state because you can do a self join to get the previous record to know what it was before. So essentially if it was like a 1 at this time, you could add other columns for context if you want, but really you just need the state, the machine. You should really just put all of your you should put all of your separate machines that you have defined into a single database and just manage it. And then you have the time, right? Then it goes to state 2, right? For machine 1 at time 2. Then when you pull these records back, you do a self join. You take time 2 minus time 1, and then that it was in state 1 for 1,000 seconds, and then it was at state 2 for, well, if there's no new record right now, then you take the last record that was returned by time, you subtract that from the current time, so it's been in state 2 for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, right? That's how you're calculating OEE in real time. We have that in Tulip. Awesome, Richard. Yeah, I mean, you guys have obviously built an MES system. For the timestamps, do you recommend using UTC or local time zone? I use, pretty sure it's like, what is it? The epoch time, right? The actual time. Yeah, UTC. Yeah, definitely want to standardize the time so you can do global OEE and stuff like that. So let me erase this. So you don't really need to collect all the process. You don't really need to have every process parameter. You can, you might be able to put some, but really what matters to calculate the availability, to calculate, you have production counts. So that's going to get into quality, which we'll get into in a second. But to calculate availability, you do need to do that. All right, so let's go into performance. Performance takes into account slow cycles and small stops. I don't know if I really agree with that. This comes from OE.com. So small stops, I would if it's an event and it's a micro stop, I would actually put small stops into availability, right? I would actually put that into an availability loss. Maybe if they mean small stops by, if what they mean by small stops is like the machine slows down, but the status register always stayed in running, then you could consider that as a performance loss. But I would typically put small stops, because really small stops are your biggest reason of downtime, right? That's why so many companies that are measuring OEE by hand think that their availability is much higher than it actually is. It's the micro stops that get you, right? But here that's the third reason why Walker says that OEE is like hard. There's issues with it. Is the formulas, different formulas. If you can calculate OEE down to the 1 second, then you could put small stops into this category. So this is 1 second. And you should be calculating it down to the second. Performance score of 100% means the process is running as fast as possible. This is also where some potential questions come up. Sometimes, depending on what SKU you're running, depending on what product you're running, it may change what as fast as possible means, right? For example, the ID4 for Volkswagen takes around 30 hours to make, right? Model 3 from Tesla takes around 10 hours. I don't know the exact number for Model Y, but let's say for sake of argument that the Model Y takes 8 hours. So depending on if that line was running a Model 3, or I don't know if you can't really see that, but you get the picture, right? If you're running a Model 3, then the as fast as possible would be, an X rate, and then if you're running a Model Y on that line, it might be a faster rate, right? So that's why you need to schedule your rates based on the SKU that you're running. If you just take, hey, this bottling line is capable of doing 1,000 bottles per minute, but when we run 24-ounce cans versus 12-ounce cans, it takes longer to fill, right? So, and you don't want to just increase the velocity of the filler because then it'll spill the beer or whatever, So, it might literally be, if you didn't adjust what the rates were, it might look like, hey, the 24-ounce cans, my speed is low. But if you adjust what as fast as possible means for the SKU, then you could have different possible speeds. So you can normalize these. So this is kind of touching on some of the areas of what people have conflicts with. This is touching on some of the areas where people have conflicts with OEE, because hey, maybe a 12-ounce can costs, is $1 in profit, but the 24-ounce can is only $1.20, but I can only produce them half as fast. So, in that case, real profit would be what you'd want to optimize for. But in any sense, if you're running it at 100% speed, you should get 100% performance, right? You shouldn't try to run the 24-ounce can at the 12-ounce speed, because then your quality will go to shit, right? Because then it'll be spilling the beers or whatever. So let's look at quality last. So quality takes into account defects, including parts that need rework. A quality score of 100% means there are no defects, only good parts are produced. So one of the things that people said is quality is not binary. Well, it kind of actually is. At the end of the day, a part's either good enough to ship or it's not good enough to ship. Sure, you can have the perfect part that, and they look at quality like this, right? So quality is something like, you guys can see this here. You have lower control limit, upper control limit. Then you have actual where it fails, right, is here. And then essentially you have a distribution that looks something like this. You kind of have something like this. So here's your upper control limit, lower control limit, right? This is your actual, your spec. The red line is your spec. So in theory, yeah, if you're producing all parts down here, you've had a drop in quality. But my argument would be if this isn't acceptable, if your actual limits aren't acceptable, then change your limits. Flames Basketball said that picture of Walker is straight on fire. What is the heat on the feet? Is that a Walker or a Jordan guy? Josh, what's the shoes again? You said it was Puma or something? CP and CPK, you could continuously monitor those. Exactly, right? You should monitor those. This gets into the straw man argument. They say OE is either a zero, or it's either a 0 good, or 1 good, or 0 bad. But my argument is, at the end of the day, right, there's some products that are shipped here that do get shipped, right? So if it's a good part, it's a good part. It doesn't need rework and it gets shipped, right? So if you want to strive to be a higher quality organization, right, that's one of the... It's funny, actually, that the Teslas, that's one of their main complaints, is that the quality is not as high as, like a BMW or something. Well, that's because they're not optimizing for quality. They're optimizing for throughput. They're optimizing for volume. As long as it's good enough to ship, they're going to ship it, right? So it is a good part, right? They may rework it later, right? You may have to go to the service center and get your trim fixed or something like that, or your panel gaps adjusted. But they're taking that information from the service center and putting that information back into their OEE score and saying, hey, this VIN number car that we produced 6 months ago actually wasn't a good part. It did need a little bit of rework. You better believe they're going back and updating that number, right? Rick Bellotta says most manufacturers don't do that. Well, I would agree, but they should be. That doesn't mean that quality, right? He says, like, most people won't know about quality issues till down the road, right? Well, that's not always true, right? There are quality issues that they can detect right away, right? Even some of those machines, like you see stuff coming down the line and it uses like a visual camera inspection, and then it uses like air to like to reject certain parts that are not within spec. I mean, they could easily count that as bad part, and then all the rest of them are good parts, right? Flame Basketball said disappointed, but still strong. Right, and so at the end of the day, why do we multiply all these together to get OEE? No. So we multiply all these together. Actually, OEE takes into account all losses. OEE score of 100% means you are manufacturing only good parts as fast as possible with no downtime, with no unplanned downtime. That's what it means. So it actually does mean something. It's not meaningless. It has meaning. And then you can always drill down into each one of these scores individually if your OEE has a problem. Let's go on to the next slide here. Why is OEE multiplied together? Because math. That's why. Because you could see here, this is probably like this would be like an OEE score of, this is roughly from here to here, right? Because this is scheduled loss, so this is not red, so this is part of TEEP. So TEEP is another, right? OEE is not the only thing. TEEP is, can I get better at scheduling my equipment? Can I reduce my turnover rates? Can I add a third shift, right? Just by adding from 2 shifts to 3 shifts, which SpaceX is doing now. SpaceX is adding a third shift to their manufacturing process of their Starship. They're adding a third shift. So their TEEP is going to go from, at best 66% to at best 100%, right? And you better believe they're fucking monitoring that, right? But of this 100% time, right, this is our planned production time. we first subtract availability loss, because if the machine's not available to run, then you can't be running, right? It's important that when you're calculating this, if you're producing 0 parts per minute, that you're not dinging availability and performance, right? This is availability, performance, and then quality. And then this, right, from here to here, that's like a 30% OEE. I don't know if you guys can see that, yeah. So you can real easily see that if I had a runtime, if I had availability of 30%, but then I had 100%, or if I had availability of 30%, but then I had a performance of 100% and a quality of 100%, that would equal the same OEE. So it just comes down to fully productive time. At the end of the day, you have available time, you have all time, and then you plan your production time, then you have your available runtime, and then you have, what you could have produced in that time versus what you actually produced, because you maybe ran the machine slower, or it slowed down a little bit, but it didn't fully stop. And then last but not least, you have your quality loss. Measuring binary quality is not useless, right? It literally tells you how many parts you produced that were good versus how many parts that you produced that were bad. And if you find out after the fact that it was bad, you just go update it, right? Mario, if you're in the chat, let me know if you give your operators an ability to within your software to update quality from history, right? Update the raw events. So then when you calculate OEE again, or let's see, Richard Shaw, let me know the same thing. Do you give your operators an ability, or your managers an ability, to go update quality from previous production runs? Bravo says, I would guess that there are products in the market already available to calculate and present these KPIs, aren't there? Isn't this reinventing the wheel one more time? No, Ravel, because, well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of products, but you still have to know how this works in order to implement these products, because a lot of the times this information is coming from your PLC, right? Well, actually, all of the time it's coming from your PLC. This is how you get the real-time events, right? This is why if you're calculating OEE on a spreadsheet, right? Mario said, it's going to be inaccurate. You need to be calculating in real time, and that data comes from the edge. So a lot of times you might need to make programming changes to get the status register, right? Or to know what is downtime, you might have to get the planned time from ERP or from the scheduling, right? But you might want to load that into the PLC, right? You can do that by subscribing to it from the unified namespace. You might want the PLC to know what product number you're running, right? These are all things that I had to do. I did actually the OEE system that I built it in WinCCOA, which Walker, I identified WinCCOA as an IIoT platform, right? It supports the minimum technical requirements, so that sort of makes it right up there alongside Ignition and frameworks. The reason why I'm not a super big fan of WinCCOA is it has a high learning curve, right? But it's fully flexible, right? You can do basically anything in it. So I wrote an OEE engine inside of the WinCCOA platform. I did it all using libraries and stored procedures. So the reason why I did that was because the manufacturer was manufacturing these giant rings, 12 foot in diameter, 10 to 12 feet in diameter. So these rings would literally take weeks to make, right? So we sort of had to break that ring down into its manufacturing steps. Each ring would, it'd have like, if you look, this is from the top, if you looked at it from the side, it would sort of look like, this, and right, it would have like some sort of contour, and then you had it on that side. But essentially, I mean, these things were made out of titanium, right? These things were freaking expensive. So And like when it was a week into the job, the supervisors literally had no insight into knowing how far complete are you on this job, you know? So what we did was we broke the job down into steps, blocks from each operation. So we literally broke it down into every single operation. And we got that information from the FANUC CNC. These were like big Morisiki and Honor machines. I mean, these were like, I won't say the company's name, but think of it like aerospace company making big giant rings for Boeing and like for their jet engines. Essentially, this was like the cowling for the like GE engines and stuff like that. So in order to get more granularity into their actual planned production time, their runtime, and et cetera, we broke down this manufacturing operation into its individual components, and then we could tell whether or not we'd calculate how long each step was supposed to take. So we knew based on some simulation software, this step was supposed to take 1,000 seconds. This one was only like 50 seconds or whatever, or maybe 500 seconds. That's a little quick, but we knew exactly how long each one of those steps would take, and we just counted that against their performance, right? Calculating availability was pretty easy. We knew if it was running or we knew if it wasn't, right? So we could calculate availability pretty easily. But calculating performance on a part that takes 3 weeks, it's kind of hard, right? You can't just wait till 3 weeks and then say, okay, now I'm late. So we broke it down into individual steps. And this was all written in C within the WinCCOA platform. If I had the IO Hub, I'd probably be able to do it within. I'd be able to do some of these calculations in there and sending the raw data to the database, right? Sending the raw data to sending the process data to a Canary historian, right? That was one of the issues. Was like we didn't have an MQTT broker at that time, so it was all sort of using WinCCOA distributed architecture, which was kind of a bitch to set up. If I actually had an MQTT broker, publishing and subscribing that information would have been much, much easier, right? Could have centralized it, then took those events from the broker and then stored them from the database in the broker, rather than having database writes from 5 different machines out on the plant floor. So management would have been a lot easier. But essentially, and then we could tell, hey, this end block 101, we had to rework. So if we had to rework it, we would take it out from we'd take it out from the quality loss. So it's not always easy to shove a round peg into a square hole. Sometimes you have to make a square hole for a square peg, and this is a perfect example of the OEE system I built. Right? It was called MES Lite. You could look it up. So it's built in WinCCOA. It's still managed by the integrator I used to work with. So let's move on. We're going to go a little bit over here, but that's all right, because we're about done here. So 3 methodologies for improving OEE in manufacturing. The 3 most popular manufacturing improvement methodologies are lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and theory of constraints. This is from OEE.com. OEE was developed as part of lean manufacturing, specifically as part of a powerful and holistic process improvement process known as TPM, or total productive maintenance. All of these methodologies have a great deal to offer for manufacturing improvement. None of these methodologies are easy. As a result, we are often asked, is there a way to get started while we put a comprehensive program in place? The answer is yes. Get your unified namespace in place. Get your infrastructure in place. Like I said, if I had an MQTT broker like HiveMQ, it would have made doing all of those calculations much easier. And then there's a 4th methodology. This is actually the first time I've ever heard of it, but I thought it'd be interesting to share, get some of the dialogue and discussion going inside of the Discord. IDA. This page introduces a simple and universal methodology for driving any improvement activity and shows you how to apply it to OEE. This method is known as the IDA, or Information Decision Action. So basically, information, identify constraint, and capture loss information, right? You have to start calculating OEE in order for you to do that. Then you take a decision, you pick one of your top losses, one of the it's like a Pareto chart. What are the biggest areas of losses? You pick one of those and you decide what to do. Pick a countermeasure. Hey, maybe we're going to re-engineer this machine, or we're going to change out. We're going to maybe do something a little bit different, like increase increase power to a machine or something like that, right? But you basically decide a countermeasure, and then you implement the countermeasures and capture what you learn. That gives you a result. So it's like a kind of a simple framework. I don't know if this is useful or not, but let's move on to the last one here. All right, so problems with OEE. And thanks, Rick, for bringing up all these issues. Rick said in the Discord he's taking an extreme approach because he doesn't want OEE to be like the only thing that we focus on. Again, it's not the only thing we focus on. We're focusing on it right now because that post that Dr. Burns brought up, so we had to address it. But essentially, here's a couple potential issues with OEE, and I'll address each one. So imagine a production. Rick says, imagine a production line. I gotta take a breath. Imagine a production line where a technician produces strands of some high-tech fiber, like carbon fiber or something. It sounds like maybe something that he's worked on. Shift one runs the machine full out for 8 hours and gets a 99% OEE, but then heat buildup causes the nozzles to jam on shift two, leading to a 3-day outage and a 0% OEE. Should we reward shift one for their awesomeness? No, we shouldn't. What we should do is we should look at that and say, hey, the max speed, there's two solutions here. Max speed, we need to lower it, or we need to introduce planned downtime. All right, this is what's known as a duty cycle. There's equipment that's rated for 100% duty cycle. You know what that means? It means good to just run 100% of the time. It doesn't need any stop time. There's other equipment that has a duty cycle. Like I think an air compressor isn't meant to just go, maybe some are, but there are air compressors that maybe only have, let's see if we can zoom this out a little bit so you guys can see this. There might be air compressors that have a 50% duty cycle, so you wouldn't cut out against OEE, right? So of course you wouldn't reward them for their awesomeness. You would thank them actually for helping you discover that hey, this machine isn't able to run 100% of the time. It needs a 50% duty cycle, so we need to introduce planned downtime, or maybe adjusting the max speed set point would solve that issue. Next one. Rick says, imagine an assembly area where workers are told to strive for 95% OEE. First of all, that's ridiculous, but let's just keep going. 95% OEE, but because of trying to maintain that frantic pace for hours, they end up with injuries that keep them out of work for 6 months. Is that a good way to manage operations? No. The good way to manage operations is to design a manufacturing workflow that doesn't introduce these type of strains to your operators, right? 100% availability shouldn't be like you're running, 100% speed shouldn't be like, I gotta do all these things and it's just impossible, right? Then that's not 100% speed. That's your speed is incorrect, or you need more operators, right? So in this case, you might need more operators, or you might, again, this is just sort of like a straw man, like don't take OEE out of context. That's weird. All right, imagine a heat. All right, so don't do that. Imagine a heat surface treatment process that can crank out twice as much product at full speed, but consumes 4 times the amount of energy and generates significantly more CO2 while consuming 8 times more cooling water. Is that better or worse? In order to answer that question, I would need to know exactly how much the water costs. I would need to know, are there any carbon costs? Are we paying a carbon tax for the carbon we're putting in? And then I would need to know what's the profitability on the product. And then it's a simple equation, right? You can do that by calculating that in real time. So I mean, it's a good question, right? But the answer is really easy. What is the CO2 carbon cost? What is the water cost? Like if water is super cheap, then I don't really care if we're using 8 times more cooling water, right? If we have unlimited supply, if we're getting it like from an ocean or something like that, or from a river or whatever, right? You can put numbers to these things. So just put numbers to them and calculate it. He's probably trying to make the illustration that it's worse. So in that case, yeah, then what you would do is you would say at full speed, what you would do is you would say full speed, you'd have to lower it. So, if it was running at 100%, if 100% speed was like 100%, whatever, you would take 80, we need to run it at 80%. So 80% speed is now the new 100%, okay? Next one, imagine a packaging line that ran at 96% OEE, but a week later it was realized that the wrong labels were on the bottles. Do you think OEE numbers gets corrected? It doesn't matter that most manufacturers don't do it. What matters is that you should do it and that Tesla does it. And Pack IoT allows you to do that, right? Tulip allows you to do that. MES 4.0 allows you to do that, right? The MES system that I built, I allowed the operator to do that. Rework was a big example. Like they had to say, hey, I'm reworking this block, right? Because, Rick's right. Oftentimes there isn't an automated detection. So the operator has to let them know. And they're going to want to let them know because otherwise, if they didn't let me know that, hey, N block 101 was being reworked, then it wouldn't take it out of the quality score. It would take it out of performance because it would look like it took twice as long to finish that block. But in reality, they were just reworking it. So, it's a good point, but I don't really, again, I don't think it really makes a difference with OE. So here's the last one. Imagine a specialty. These are really good examples, Rick. Thanks for all the engagement in the Discord. But imagine a specialty chemical facility where different products are manufactured due to a variety of different reasons. OEE varies by product because of stochastic aspects of downtime and quality. Again, this is part of the reason why you want to schedule your rates, okay? But since operators and supervisors are given a bonus for OE, don't do that. That's a bad idea. They choose to run the orders for product A and B on their shifts, deferring orders for product C and D, which end up shipping late and costing customer goodwill. No, it wasn't a win. All right. What you do in this scenario is you adjust your rates for products A. You don't bonus off of OEE. Really, if you're going to do a bonus, it should be tied to profitability. And you need, I said this in the Discord, machine learning and AI needs OEE in order to decide what product to run on what line and when. You might have a product order that you've had for a while, but a new one just came in and it's more profitable to run, even though it has a lower OEE score running that one because it's more difficult or whatever. That's why you want to optimize for profit, not necessarily OEE, but you still need OEE to calculate your capacity and to calculate how long it's going to take you to actually produce that production run, which ultimately calculates your profitability. No, it wasn't a win. and I know Rick's being contrarian here just to make a point, but I mean, these were very easily solvable issues, right? They just need to be talked about. Let's see. And I'm sure you guys can come up with more examples and more use cases and more solutions. All right, so we got the last slide here. Yeah, these were all my answers. Yeah, this was Rick's most, this is probably the smartest thing that Rick said. No, I'm just kidding. Rick said a lot of smart things, but this is one of my favorite things that he said is, credit where it's due. Walker's UNS concepts lay a great foundation for a new approach to KPIs, far more comprehensive, contextual, and actionable. Let's think about how to leverage UNS to do this better. Let's do that. Way to go, Rick. Mario said, it's usually the plant manager would have to argue with the CFO and sales to solve this case. It is not a plant manager's decision to lower OEE to favor different products. It is a company decision. All right. Questions? If you guys have any questions, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up here in a couple of minutes. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you again, HiveMQ, for sponsoring the month of November. We got a lot of good content coming for you guys. So we have HiveMQ to thank for making that possible. Agreed. OEE is not a good metric to qualify an enterprise's economic engine. Economic engine should be in terms of profit per X. X depends on your operation, and OEE is part of that calculation, or the raw events that go into OEE. If you guys enjoyed this stream, make sure to hit the like button. Join the community Discord server if you're not already. Let me put the link on the screen now, iot.university/discord. In the Discord, there's actually a new channel for HiveMQ. So if you have any specific questions about HiveMQ, you want to take advantage of their free broker, you can do a free HiveMQ broker for like up to 100 devices. I know a lot of the people in our community are taking advantage of that. So definitely go ahead and join there. A special shout out, thank you to Ian Scarrett for helping put the sponsorship together and making it happen on short notice. We really appreciate that. A couple things to note. Something to look forward to in December is Walker Reynolds interviewing Sandy Monroe on our channel, talking about Sandy's prolific in the manufacturing industry, especially in the automotive, and it sort of plays into what we're talking about this month. So, do you add the OEE for each cell in the line to take an average or something else? Yeah, so you can calculate OEE by cell, but then what you do is you recalculate it for the whole line, right? You always want to use the raw data and not take an average, if that answers your question. So if I wanted to calculate OEE of my whole entire plant, I wouldn't just average the OEEs of line 1, line 2, line 3. I would take the sum of their components and then recalculate it, so that way it's weighted. There is a slight issue with that in the sense that one machine might be producing 1,000 parts per minute, but another machine might only be producing 1 part per minute. So this machine over here might have a quality or good parts of 10 in a day, whereas this machine over here has good parts of 1,000. So if the quality loss on this machine that produces less parts won't impact the overall. So there are issues with it, but overall, if you just take it by the unit basis, then calculating it based on the raw data and recalculating it when you do aggregations is the way to do it. I actually did a video, I'll link it there, how to aggregate OEE by line, by cell, by line, by area, by plant. And that was one of the comments that came up was, if there's a vast difference in like the number of parts that one machine produces versus another, then those will be weighted differently. So, again, it's not perfect, but that's the way you should do it. It's better than averaging it. Or, maybe in that scenario, it might make more sense to just average the two. But in general, use the raw counts, because availability is that makes sense, right? You have available seconds to run, and then you have your actual seconds that you ran. So seconds is seconds, right? So, for availability, take the raw data, number of seconds you plan to run versus number of seconds you actually ran, and then you aggregate that in one big pool. You have issues with quality. You could get into sort of a Simpsons paradox issue there. So again, it's not perfect, but it's a tool in our tool belt. And to say it's shit or to say burn it is just leading manufacturers in the wrong direction and causing them to get analysis paralysis. Let's get the right architecture in place. Let's start calculating this in real time. Let's get the benefit of displaying that to the operator in real time. There's going to be improvements in OEE just by virtue of tracking it and displaying it in real time. right? They're going to improve if they know that this is something that it matters, right? Having the company stay profitable matters if people want a job, right? We want Americans to be employed, right? There's a lot of this philosophical component, but I'll share Walker's message here in a second that he has for you guys. But our mission is to say create middle class jobs by helping manufacturers do more with less. A lot of the social and issues that we're facing in our environment right now is because of a lack of the middle class. And in order for there to be a middle class, there has to be manufacturing jobs, right? If there's no one to make stuff, then stuff doesn't get made, and then we have supply chain shortages, right? We need a strong manufacturing in the United States in order for there to be a strong middle class, in order for a lot of these social unrest issues to be solved, right? So that's what we're doing. Thank you guys for tuning in. Walker said he's dealing with some personal issues right now that he has a responsibility to address. And he's also working on rewrites for the book that comes out later this year in December. So Adversity and Success is what the title of the book's going to be. And it's definitely going to be something you want to pick up when it comes out. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you guys in the Discord, and see you guys next week. Peace.